Good day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show, second take. I know a lot of you are getting ready for the long weekend. You can always tell it's the May long weekend. The clouds come over, the snow threatens in the mountains, and the price at the gas pump suddenly goes up 20 cents a liter. A coincidence, I'm sure it is, every long weekend somehow, but that's just the way life goes. Still, it's I think a lot of people's favorite long weekend. I mean, there's really only so much you can celebrate on Remembrance Day and such when the snow is flying and things are cold. So hopefully you're getting out having a good time as this one comes. Take a little breather from the politics. Just suck in another hour or two of politics out of me for today, and then you can run off for the weekend. We got a lot to cover today. I am going to talk in a bit about Carney's cabinet. We'll speak as well. Actually, Alexander Brown of the National Citizens Coalition is going to come on, and we'll break that down a little bit. Talk about what do we got? Is this big, grand change coming out of the Carney regime as compared to the Trudeau regime? Nah, it looks like the same old shit. What else we got? John Carpay. He's a lawyer with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and they've got an interesting one going on. Basically, standing up for a lawyer who's battling woke law associations. They're really, the wokeism, that sickness it slithers through and it gets into professional organizations and such. And it's more of a covert way to control conversation, or in this case, lawyers, which is of concern because as well, we may have a love-hate relationship with lawyers when we really do need them. We really do need them sometimes. So that'll be an interesting conversation as well. But this is cabinet. I just want to laugh at some of these things. Some of the voices that we're seeing on X coming up, talking about Carney's first, moves as the new prime minister. And yeah, it's the same old bloody faces. He didn't do a new cabinet. He shuffled it. And he's not even going to give us a budget. Nope, sorry. No budget this year. Maybe next year. Really? I mean, he promised billions and billions more spending. So I guess we'll just get to find out when later on. But Andrew Coyne, Warren Kinsella, both on X now shocked at how terrible Carney's government is appearing to be already. Really? Andrew Coyne is saying that they pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. They did over yours, you clown. You Laurentian elitist, pompous jerk. Coyne, where do you come from? I mean, were you deliberately blinding yourself to this? Or are you genuinely actually shocked at this point? You carried water for those ding-dongs through the entire election campaign. You talked down your nose, as you typically do, for every CBC panel, shot at the independent media like us who dared to say, you know what, these liberal assholes are the same as the last liberal assholes. Yeah, this show doesn't go on the TV, so I don't have to worry about the CRTC. So, Kinsella, I'll give it to him. At least he was very critical of Trudeau when Trudeau was in, but then he was expressing optimism. Well, along with a lot of the others, Carney will fix it. He'll be okay. He'll be better. And now he's like, oh wow, this doesn't look very good. No doubt. Anita Anand already coming out. I mean, we got rid of Melanie Joly, G.I. Joly as foreign affairs, and instead got Anita Anand, another Trudeau minister traded in. And the first thing she came out did was support Hamas. Good work. All right, well, we'll rant more about that, though, and I'll talk more about it when I get Alexander Brown on from the Citizens Coalition, and we'll look at that federal thing. But let's talk about some news updates and see what's happening. Since Dave's taken off to the Holy Land, I've dragged Sean Polzer in here.
Hey, Cory.
Hey, good. That's about time you came in anyway.
Yeah, on a Friday.
Yes, our energy and business. And, well, you're right about pretty much everything out there, though.
Got to be a jack of all trades in this business.
Yeah. The big bucks for niche specialties.
Know a little bit about everything and a lot about nothing.
No, all that Russian money we're accused of getting.
Where is it, man?
Where's my rubles?
Yeah, my rubbles.
Yeah, no, I'm eating borscht. That's just because it's all I can afford.
It's because Derek makes it.
The fringe benefits of the Western
Yeah,
Standard.
fringe benefits.
No, it's borscht.
Yeah, it's
bring
borscht.
your own sour cream.
Yeah. And dill.
Yeah, that's good actually. I like borscht.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to jump right into this?
Sure, let's go at it.
Okay. So going on, Prime Minister Carney.
Prime Minister Carney.
We have to call him Prime Minister Carney now. We don't have to call him Liberal leader anymore. So he quietly went to, even though he campaigned on the anti-Trump rhetoric and the whole elbows up. Yeah, and he had Mike Myers and all the famous endorsements, right? Well, he's quietly rolled back 6-month tariff exemptions on virtually everything that he said that he was going to, tariff in response. So we're talking about food and beverage packaging, presumably that's aluminum, items related to healthcare, public safety, and national security. And automakers get a break too. So,
well, I mean, every economist, and every honest economist, and people in general had always been saying counter tariffs are stupid.
Right.
I mean, the tariffs
they're counterproductive.
To be fair, the tariffs were stupid out of the Orange Man in the first place, but then doubling down on the dumb isn't a good way to battle it.
Well, and I think the issue here is that he campaigned on it.
Yes.
Right? So he's, whatever.
He's
that
already was last week. We're here this week.
It sounds a lot like Pierre Trudeau Sr. wage and price controls.
Yeah.
It's revisiting the liberals, stealing Pierre Poilievre's good ideas. We've got an update on the ostriches, the plight of the ostriches, who up until now had their heads in the sand.
Canadian genocide, yeah, everything's a genocide. Running off is genocide.
Anyway, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency now must prove that the birds are infected with avian flu.
Did a court rule that, or?
I'm not exactly sure. This is a Jen Hodgson story.
Oh wow! See, she ran out before we.
I was your second choice.
Oh, you were always my first, Sean. I just had to, I had a quota to fill, right?
Right.
We got enough old white guys on here already.
Anyway, have you eaten ostrich before?
No.
Oh, it's quite good.
Well, actually, I've had quite a few things. I don't think I've ever had ostrich.
It's a nice lean red meat. It's for poultry, it's tasty.
So I mean that whole backstory though, I mean that they're looking to move in and slaughter 400 of these ostriches over alleged bird flu.
Well, and they're quite big birds, and I would imagine quite expensive. It's not like going in and wiping out 500,000 chickens.
Yeah, which even then could be hard on a poultry farmer, but ostriches, I mean, it's some large livestock.
I've never had an ostrich egg. It's about the size of a football.
Yeah. Well, we'll watch. I mean, it's funny though how people respond to things too, though. I mean, emotionally and viscerally. I mean, if it was a chicken farm with 400 chickens, people say, "Oh, it's a shame," but you're going to kill 400 ostriches. Oh my God!
Well, wasn't there some video of animal welfare activists showing people throwing the chickens around and the back of the truck or something? It was a couple years ago.
Oh, probably. I mean, there has been chicken mistreatment. I hate that.
Chicken mistreatment.
I like to see at least some degree of humanity.
Well, I don't want to eat unhappy animals.
Well, no, I want them to be smiling when we cut their throats.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Also, there's an external review on the RCMP management of the Freedom Convoy. 97 Jen is currently reviewing the 92-page report, but the bottom line is that the conclusion is that it was highly politicized.
Gee,
I wonder how much that cost to come up with that conclusion.
Yeah, where would we be without these reports?
And then a couple stories that I'm working on. We've got a good old hostile takeover battle. Meg Energy. So Meg Energy is in the Pathways Alliance. They're building multi-billion-dollar carbon capture pipeline and system out north of Edmonton by Cold Lake. Strathcona Resources is headed by Adam Watrous, big Calgary financier. He's also a backer of Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, who's got into trouble because he hosted a meeting in Banff for some big donors that have some big, a lot more money than you or I.
Well, that's not a high bar.
No. True enough.
This isn't off the rack. Yeah.
You buy off the rack too. Yeah, so do I.
But I mean, Nancy Southern's talking about we have this chilled business climate because of independence talk and everything else. You wouldn't think something as major a move as this would happen in such a unstable climate as Western
Or maybe
Canada
it would because it's consolidation. You never know. Like these share prices, they're being driven down. Maybe you might be able to see a lot more of this kind of consolidation happen. But especially vis-a-vis American.
You can take advantage of instability to come in when things are low, but at the same time, it means that their long-term view, whoever that planner is, thinks this is going to be a good buy in the long run.
Right.
I don't know. Those are bigger minds than ours.
Yeah. Okay. We're getting a little off track.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like to
getting a little bit into the weeds.
Yeah.
Right now it's just dollars and cents. It's $5 or $6 billion. Well, I'm looking at it more from oil production, 5th or 6th largest oil producer in Canada by volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, Adam, I would give all my life savings to Adam Watrous and tell him just to take care of it for me.
They know their stuff.
Yeah, he knows his stuff for sure. And then another big story that we're looking at. The UK newspapers are all abuzz today because apparently they found Chinese kill switches in solar panels that could disable the whole power grid. And as you recall, a couple weeks back, we had the issue in Spain So Spain is very heavily reliable on renewable energy, and particularly on Chinese-made components. Chinese companies control about half of the supply chain for this stuff. They're again higher level than you or I will ever understand, but it's the usual suspects: Huawei, Chinese Communist Party, the Red Army.
Yeah, I mean, it's an oligarchy. It's a semi-private type of corporations, but they're all tied in with it.
And it's raising alarm bells.
Nothing large is going to operate in China without being integrated with the Chinese Communist Party.
Of course not. Yeah, right. And if they think that they can shut down, half the North American power grid by taking out a few well-placed solar farms, then hey.
So I live in the
good on
country
them, right?
Generated, but that's scary stuff. I mean, some countries are getting very dependent on this renewable.
Well,
stuff.
And including Canada, because we have no real manufacturing capability in this country, we basically assemble Chinese parts. I dug up a letter from Commons Committee back in October from Canadian Energy Renewable Canria, basically arguing against tariffs on Chinese-made solar panels and products, because otherwise it would delay our net zero goals out to 2050.
But the world's getting a reality check lately, though, on how integrated economies are.
Right.
It's funny that President Trump's backing off or making deals with China now, and a lot of the tariff talk and everything else as well is whether he knew that prior or not. The reality was, too, I mean, you can't drive 10 minutes anywhere in the United States without seeing a Dollar General store.
Sure.
Go into a Dollar General store and you definitely meet the pajama people who are Trump's voter base.
Right.
And they're shopping, and 90% of the products are Chinese. When you're going to hike the cost up by the amounts that he's talking about with those tariffs.
Yeah, you've mentioned this before, the dollar store index. Yes, it's real. And if you've been through Louisiana.
I'm not just poking at the Americans. I mean, especially in tighter times, the dollar stores are busy spots, but they're almost all Chinese goods.
Absolutely. Well, and major American retailers like Walmart, Costco. Costco. We had the story here the other day. Has emerged as a major retailer of gold. They've become one of the largest gold brokers in the United States and in North America, just by selling these little wafers at wholesale rates. So
just that reminder to everybody: it's easy to say buy local, but when you start to look at how our economies work, actually, it's much tougher.
And I think you make a point too that Trump's tariffs, whether you like them or not, or whatever you think of them, I know you don't.
Not fond of him.
No, but he's definitely raised awareness of the issue.
Yeah, it's
like I said, I don't even think that he even knew.
A positive side effect. I mean, kind of an economic experiment for everybody to remind them of. And again, I mean, maybe the lesson is to do as he's saying and localize your economy so you aren't as dependent on the external suppliers as much. But it's letting everybody know if you want to do that, it's going to come at a pretty good cost to your wallet.
Oh, yes, absolutely, for sure. And then that brings me to my final story, which is China is now the #1 buyer of Canadian oil off the Trans Mountain Pipeline.
Oh, good. I mean,
and we're both trying to get around tariffs.
That is a good, well, depending on how you look at it, just as your business development. I mean, in broadening our customer base, because the original Trans Mountain before the expansion was still, most of that went to Seattle.
Right. And it did after the original expansion came on. Most of it was going to Seattle as well. But yeah. And it's still not 100% full because they still have to set the tariffs. Well, tolls.
Yeah.
How much they're going to charge per barrel. So that's going up before the Canadian Energy Regulator later this summer. But so once that gets all worked out, then there's a possibility for another couple 100,000 barrels a day. And they're going to expand it 1.6 million barrels. So
yeah, well, maybe they'll find some more destinations for those tankers all the same. So because being reliant on China doesn't sound to me like it's a heck of a lot better than being reliant on the United States.
As long as they pay.
Until they flick that switch and our power's off.
Yeah, right.
All right, well, thanks for those updates. That's good and bad economic outlook on things, and I'll let you get back to hammering out those stories.
And have a good long weekend, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Cory.
All right. So yes, that is a business and energy. Sean Polzer, I see he knows his stuff. He's digging into it all the time. And those stories are constantly going up to the Western standards. And so I'd like to remind everybody before I get to that next guest, take out your subscriptions, $10 a month, $100 for a year. Well worth it. It keeps us rolling, keeps our reporters going, it keeps this studio going. get on there, westernstandard.news/subscription. If you have already, I really, really do appreciate it. It keeps us independent and not taking that federal money. And if you haven't, come on, get on there, guys. It's an investment in yourself. I'll throw some more cliche crap out there. All right, let's talk to Alex Brown of the National Citizens Coalition and get on to some federal politics. How you doing?
Cory, I'm great. Congratulations on the Amazon sales of your book of late.
Oh yeah. It's it took off. I mean, I really am not that prescient. I didn't know what was going to happen a couple of years ahead of writing that thing, but the conditions for having a book that's a guidebook to Western independence have made for good book sales lately.
Well timed.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, and as we look at these things, we're a few weeks out from the federal election now. People are starting to, I guess, accept that we've got Prime Minister Carney, but now we're getting a picture of what Mr. Carney's got to offer. And it's, I mean, I'll let you take off from there. It's not looking that great.
I mean, we talked about this last time, which was, you asked me like, how's this going to start off? And I paused for a while I gathered my thoughts, and that sort of said everything. But it looks like the last 10 years, there's a piece in the Globe, and I won't say the writer just to be respectful. There's a piece in the Globe today in their opinion section, which was all in the tank for Carney during the election, that says, oh, we've been had. And it's like, speak for yourself. Like, we saw this coming. The Western Standard saw this coming. Like, the coverage has been great. I've been very proud to write for the Standard during the election window and appear on these shows and taking down the paywall to try to share the concern and where this was all headed. I mean, heck, you've felt it as early as writing your terrific guidebook a few years back. But starting with that Mark Carney Man of Destiny piece in the National Post many years ago, and just from reading what he'd put out there in his books, it's like this was all here. He's run by the same team. He's rehired the exact same people. I'm hearing from sources in Ottawa going, oh, I can't believe it. This is the worst start I've ever seen. And it's, what the heck did you expect? What the heck did these people expect? Like, they milked these liberal boomer voters for all that they're worth, and now they're already putting them out of their misery. Well, gee, thanks a lot. If you're out west right now and feeling alienated, if you're under, let's say, 45 and you don't see any path to home ownership, you saw this coming from a mile away. And that Brantford boomer middle finger that was given to many on the campaign trail, that should be pointed right back at this point.
Well, yeah, and I was talking about that actually at the start of my show before you got into the lobby. I'm not as kind and polite as you. I named that columnist. It's Andrew Coyne.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, come on, man. You were carrying their water for a month. You were looking down your nose on anybody who questioned this coming in. I'm not going to sit and respect you being humble now to say, oh dear, I was mistaken. No, you were, you contributed to this by, Coyne's not a foolish writer. He's a smart pundit, but he just went all in on this, and suddenly now that this reversal, it's just bizarre, to be honest.
Life, that opinion section, I'm not always kind to it. I joked yesterday about some spiritual 71-year-old Globe editorial board member being like, yeah, we lied to you, but we were well-meaning. While they barrel towards the cottage past scenes of squalor. But no, life looks a whole lot different in Rosedale, or when you can abscond to the cottage or down to Del Boca Vista. It's easy to opine on the Yobs and the rest of Canada when you're a Gary Mason in Tawasin, or you're an Andrew Coyne in Rosedale. And the rest of us just have to actually live in the ashes and to live with the consequences of effete social indulgences and protecting these sort of cocktail party class just ideals when it's business as usual off the jump, and that business is bad. It's a continuation of just housing bullshit. It's a continuation of these non-answers on justice reform. You have Stephen Guilbeault already deliberately antagonizing the need for more pipelines. He's a walking, talking unity crisis. And so, gee, thanks, Globe opinion section and editorial board. Like we knew this was coming. And for these folks to turn around and go like, oh, they got all of us. No, they got you.
Well, something that, I mean, I'm not surprised that we got another bad government knowing who was elected, but I still would have thought, okay, you made so many promises. You've made so much radical changes then, whether it's getting rid of the carbon tax or whether it's the increased spending. I mean, all sorts of things, but we're not getting a budget. I was floored. You guys are going to give us a fall economic update, but not a budget. And I mean, I saw some fart catchers making excuses. Oh, we always have budgets in spring. Yeah, but we often had elections in fall. You usually will bring out a budget about 3-4 months after coming in so you can set the tone. He doesn't even have one scheduled. It could be a year out. We're talking a country that's got some real economic serious issues going on, and he won't give us a budget. I don't even know how this is legal.
Campaigned on a plan and not slogans. Hasn't produced a plan. Campaigned on elbows up. Elbows are down. It's look, it's kind of my beat on your show at this point, is crapping on Ontario. But even Doug Ford presented a budget yesterday, and it's terrible. And his excuse, and it's an excuse considering the fact that these spending habits existed before Trump and they will exist after him, was, folks, gee golly, elbows up. And it's like, guy, the elbows were already down. And he's running Kathleen Wynne, Dalton McGuinty deficits, ad infinite. And there's no path back to balance in the foreseeable future. And let's be honest, never. They're not interested in it. They're running liberal light, and that's just who they are. But even they could put out a flaming pile of dog poop on taxpayers' front door. And for let's be honest, their federal liberal counterparts, that they feel like they can just skate on this, is a continuation of the last 10 years. And it is as bad an early warning sign as you'd expect.
Well, and I mean, I don't know. As an independent supporter, I almost, feel we're getting to the point where we've always been kind of saying things are got to get bad before they get better. Well, they're going to get bad. For geeky, types who look at economies and such, when we have the sort of spending and borrowing going on, the only natural consequence, we saw that post-COVID, even though they expressed shock, we're going to see devaluation of currency, and we're going to see inflation. Like, we're going to get it hard and soon. And we won't even be able to try and plan or counter for that because we don't even have a budget to look at to try and figure out what the heck it's going to be.
I'm no policy wonk. I don't claim to be. I'm a communicator by trade. I speak populist to people and populism, and I can see how bad this is. And Joe and Jane Lunch Pail, and like, God bless them, they're the people in Canada that are getting screwed, and our entire missing middle, they can see how bad this is. Like, it's those GDP per capita charts, we've all seen them. We've all seen the immigration charts to the heavens while housing starts are flatlined. Those are really, really bad. We can all see all our productivity metrics, inflation, what have you, that even we sort of yobs, to borrow from Andrew Coyne, if even we can see it, there's no hiding that this country's economy is just a Ponzi scheme at this point. And the fact that it's not getting better under this fetid economic genius, and that there are early signs that this is only going to get worse. That's it. If you wanted to create more Western independence sentiment, like, you couldn't dream up a better scenario to drive that. And like, I completely understand why people are looking around, people like yourself, just going like, hey guys, if not now, when?
Yeah, well, so that one of the big issues, one of the ones that was kind of pushing the Liberals down, I mean, affordability, cost of living, which is going to continue to be a problem. Housing was the huge one, especially among younger people. And younger people, that's part of why they did turn their back on the Liberals in the last election. Unfortunately, a lot of boomers said, well, I got mine, and I'm going to jealously protect it and keep those Liberals in there. But they've put Mayor Moonbeam there. What's his name? Gregor Robertson. I mean, this was a hard leftist Vancouver mayor, and they've put him in charge of housing. And he's already come out of the gate sounding like a twit.
I can be your boots on the ground guy here in Vancouver right now, and like even crunchy Kitsilano granola moms at Whole Foods are saying, "Really? They picked Gregor Robertson? Like my kids are in this $3,500 rental. Like there's no path to any future here. Like my fiance and I she has work considerations to be close to the developing world hell pit that is downtown Vancouver. And our only path to potential homeownership is being at the end of the commuter line in a 1.5 bedroom apartment that is going to be overpriced beyond belief. And so the fact that they've turned to Gregor Robertson, where without getting anyone here in trouble, his private reputation is even worse than his public reputation. This is a man who has some dodgy ties. And what he presided over was like the 110% increase in real estate costs in Vancouver, in the so-called Vancouver model, which is like an actual referred to in texts and tomes now on like how to create like a foreign investment scam through real estate. We walk through Shaughnessy some nights. It's beautiful. These old manor homes, half of them are empty, Cory, because they are somebody else's investment. Housing is not to be lived in here. And so if that is going to be stretched nationwide, and it's not as if there aren't bright, well-oriented people working on this housing plan, but if that's the guy who's going to be calling the shots, that tells you that he was put there for a reason, and it's not good. It's a future of these Brookfield Khrushchevkas, of these leaseholds that you don't actually own, that runs out of clock. They want forever renters. And there are millions of Canadians who already feel like they're forever renters right now. They feel like they are at their wits' end, like this hamster wheel can't keep going for them. And to signal that right out of the jump, if I'm a young person, if I'm entrepreneurial, if I am particularly productive and more intelligent and business-minded than myself, I don't want to feel like I have to leave, but I am deeply considering it.
Well, I mean, so I'll kind of go back to cabinet in general. I'd kind of hoped and thought, it seemed like things kind of go up and down, trends coming up and down, wokeness. People were quietly critical of Trudeau's gender balancing in cabinet, but we thought that maybe Carney be smart enough to say, no, we're going to stop that woke quota idea for these top positions. I mean, there's many well-qualified women in the Liberal caucus, I'm certain, but the bottom line is we generally want the best person for the job, and it might not always be the case, especially if you find yourself forced now to pick your choices based on gender rather than capability. They're patting themselves on the back over having their 14 women, 14-man cabinet, but we're in a pretty tenuous time right now. I don't know if this is a good sign for their priorities as they go forward.
It's not, and I think it's a sign that I think people were hoping that with the right, slightly less destructive figurehead at the helm, that he could rein in, the exact same group of PMO advisors and staffers, and then largely the exact same cabinet. And we're seeing that he either can't or won't, or this was all just a temporary expectation to win votes, because you're already seeing a guy like Nate Erskine-Smith who came back into the Liberal fold. There's a story today in Blacklock's Reporter that, like, unlike Carney, he actually sold out all his assets so he wouldn't be in conflict to stay as housing minister, because to his credit and limited Liberal partisan credit, he actually believed in his file and doing better by young Canadians, and he got the hook for the Vancouver housing crisis guy. And that was largely and supposedly, and it might have been because Carney prefers the Vancouver housing crisis guy, was because he wasn't meeting this balanced imagined sort of ESG number that he had to hit, because he didn't have female characteristics. And so we've been told that Carney's a more serious, feted economic genius who's going to, focus on the real things, but he's going to continue to pay lip service to this crap. We'd be fools to expect anything different than what we just saw over the last decade.
And beyond Carney's economic actions, I mean, in cabinet selections, he put Fraser into justice, essentially. Fraser already screwed up his other files, housing among them. And now he's, Vancouver's already dealing with housing crisis. I just talk about taking a beating. Now you've got a very incompetent man who has taken over the justice file. It looks pretty bleak.
It's bleak. Yesterday in Vancouver, or 2 days ago, a guy axed someone in the face, Cory, just walking down the street. It was like, I want your sunglasses. Axe to the face. Take a guess. Was he out on bail that day from doing something similar? He absolutely was. And so now Sean Fraser gets to drag his scythe from immigration to housing over to justice. And we're already seeing, the sort of degenerative scenes again, like in Toronto at Cafe Landwehr, where you have Hamas oriented protesters lighting smoke bombs when there's pregnant women out on the deck trying to have their supper. And it's open season again. This is a country that needed dire justice reform. And as much as that spooked the left, that meant invoking the notwithstanding clause, which is a part of the charter. And instead, we're just going to get Sean Fraser signaled that he's going to be working from home a lot because he actually does want to spend time with his family, which was the reason he left in the first place. And then the polling winds changed and he came back. This is supposed to be a full-time job. Canadian cities are less safe than ever. Families are feeling driven away. And to turn around and give on housing the Vancouver guy and on justice, probably the third biggest file after the first two that Sean Fraser nuked to him, is just if you're under 50, how do you not just lay down in the street right now and go maybe the future here isn't for me?
Well, and just to close out, speaking of opportunistic Hamas supporters, Anita Anand has taken over the foreign affairs file, and her very first thing was to come out and support Hamas. And she was also one of those who said when the polls were low, oh boy, I'm not going to run again. I'm going to spend time with the family. And then when the polls bounced, she bounced right back in. Carney is targeting his least principled caucus members and sticking them in the most senior spots.
Yeah, you have Stephen Guilbeault in charge of culture. I mean, what if that position should even exist at all, especially from a government and a party that, ignored Canada's history for the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years. He should be attending, butter tart festivals. He shouldn't be immediately tossing bombs at Alberta. And you're just seeing the same flunkies be rewarded. And it's look, we're all going to keep doing the work and we're all going to keep organizing and this gets worse in a vacuum, but I think it was Warren Kinsella who said this, and there's a pretty high fill rate there. But he was like, this is the worst start I've ever seen from a new cabinet. But it's not a new cabinet. It's the old cabinet. It's the old people. All that's different now is you have a deeply conflicted Freudian
convicted,
slip there.
not yet.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, let's see if we can actually look into some of those assets. Figurehead at the helm. And so, holy cow, we all have a lot of work to do to further communicate this screw job, this rug pull to the public, and to sort of try to explain, I think, to these liberal boomer voters who, I guess, like Andrew Coyne, are feeling, oh, I've been had. It's like, well, yeah, so you can't do this again.
Well, it's before I let you go. Yes, as you said, you got your work cut out with the National Citizens Coalition. Oh, that's your job, kind of reaching out, pulling up these things and letting the public know, digesting it. Where can people find what you guys are doing, and how can they support you?
Well, I got a new post or a new column coming out for you guys, hopefully today or this weekend. That's like, hey, we tried to warn you. I think that might even be the title. You can find us at nationalcitizens.ca, where we're putting together all kinds of post-election plans. On Twitter at Nat Citizens, on Facebook at National Citizens Coalition. And yeah, the name of the game now is creating inertia, continuing to grow this sort of groundswell of everyday working oriented, working class. It's a totally different coalition than these traditional conservative coalitions of the past. And I completely understand why people would be upset and disenfranchised. I am too, but we have no choice but to continue to do the work and to continue to pull these people back towards the center, because we've seen already that, their campaign promises were worth less than nothing.
All right. Well, thank you for working to bring it to the fore and for coming on to talk to us today. And I'm certain we'll talk again soon.
Cory, you're the man. Sign a copy of the book for me.
Right. I will do. All right. Thanks. So that is Alexander Brown, yes, from the National Citizens Coalition. And that organization has been around a long time, and they've been doing a lot of great work. Check them out, guys. We need to, not everybody's going to be digging through all those policies, cabinet ministers, all that stuff. It's our job, people like me and Alex, to kind of encapsulate it and bring it out for consumption. So I see Lynn saying, Jan Arden, the reason for the Ring doorbell. Yeah, I don't know if people who aren't on social media that much, or people who were more up to date on music. Jan Arden's a washed up Canadian singer from had a couple hits in the 90s, and actually not bad songs. I give her credit where due as far as that goes. But aside from that, she probably wouldn't have had much of a career, except it turned her into a CBC darling. So they keep making CBC specials and things like that, so they can continue to pay her six figures, because she's not selling music anymore, and certainly doesn't sell out places for performances. But it gives her a nice long career, sort of like Rita McNeil. Boy, she did well on her CBC career as well when her music went by. I would say Rita even had more musical talent, but there's something with that. Jan Arden and Rita McNeil, they got some commonalities as well. I don't know. It's something to the taste of CBC producers, I guess, or something like that. Either way, Ms. Arden went on a tirade on social media, swearing and calling Albertans pricks and a number of things. If you really want to watch, behold a woman who's lost her mind, this is a good example. Just the pure, bitter, to use that old term, Karen type, entitled, snotty, and sour. Boy, Jan, maybe just go somewhere else then. But, the attitudes from her, when we've got the rising independent support, there's no doubt about that. I mean, it's not just rising, it's exploding in the West. It's Saskatchewan and Alberta, interior BC. And what's going on with that, though, from the Laurentian elites, from the Andrew Coynes, even though she's from out here in the West, Jan Arden, I don't know where she lives these days, in a buffet somewhere or something like that. Just a moment, I've unplugged my earpiece again. Hang tough with it. Yeah, this is the fun of live broadcasts. All right. There we go. I can hear it again. I got a guest coming up with John Carpe in a little bit. If I don't have the earpiece, I'd have to go on lip reading there. But either way, getting back to what I was rambling about before I stepped on my own cable, the attitude isn't that the West shouldn't leave. It's that the West can't. They oppose us even having a discussion or a vote on whether or not we want to stay. We don't need your permission. We aren't asking for your permission. How bloody vain you guys are to feel that you can tell us whether or not we can have that discussion. Get stuffed. We're having it. And it's people like you tell us exactly why we should be having it. And you're just entrenching the independence attitude all the more. Make a case. The difference in attitude. I've talked about that before. I said that at a rebel rally the other night. It's when Quebec was going, for those of us old enough to remember in the 90s, there were traveling out rallies, there were buses, there were people out there. Please, Quebec, stay. We love you, Quebec. Oh, we would be lost without your Putin and your corrupted politicians and draining our equalization payments. Please, please, please don't vote to go. Now, when Alberta's looking at it, they're saying, you're assholes. You're not even allowed to have the referendum, much less leave. What? Wait a minute. Well, we're the ones paying the bills, you guys. And, I don't expect you to come begging and groveling, but what we need to see is a difference in attitude. Tell us why we shouldn't leave, because that's going to have much more impact. If you're going to have any impact in stopping the independence movement, you've got to tell us why stay. Don't tell me I can't go. That's not up to you. It's up to us in a vote, and the vote is going to be coming. It's getting clear, and it's getting interesting. Some of the polling numbers that was released by the Standard. Premier Smith, with internal polling, found that a majority of Albertans now are supporting exiting the Canada Pension Plan. That's not full-out independence, but that's getting a step towards it. And independent support's going up too, of course. This is one of the things that's going to strike fear down the backs of Laurentian elitist Canadians who do have a little bit of understanding of economics. Because Albertans hold up, like, and I mean, don't hold it back. They hold up the Canada Pension Plan. This province over-contributes and underdraws to the tune of about $5 billion a year. So if Albertans say, and we have the mechanism, again, it's not up to you guys, it's up to us if we're going to stay in the pension plan. And if Alberta leaves that pension plan, the rest of Canada then still has the remainder of the balance. But what they will have to do is either cut their benefits or increase their payments into it in order to make it keep going. Well, that's what you get, guys. You know, I don't think, I mean, part of the reason the support, I think, for leaving the CPP earlier in Alberta was a bit lower was that Albertans still felt generous. They felt, well, you know, we don't want to leave our fellow Canadians on the hook if we pull out of the CPP, so we'll stay in and keep overpaying. But now that we've seen this election result, now we're seeing the attitudes from the Andrew Coynes, the Jan Ardens, the Mark Carneys. It's like, you know what, the hell with you guys. we're you know, many of us, we're talking close to 40%. Now we're getting to the point of saying we want to vote to go, and it's going to grow. But over 50% now are saying, yeah, you know what, let's just take our bite of the Canadian pension plan and just have it over here. And already the response again is visceral. You jerks, you selfish Albertans, you nasty souls. Well, we're not asking for something that another province doesn't already have. If you want to look into it, Quebec has its own pension plan. They always have. Good for them. Right on. But again, why is it that we're jerks if we want to have a pension plan, but Quebec is asserting themselves and should be respected when they have theirs? So, you know, you guys better start sweating out in the Laurentian East, because we have the mechanisms. And as I said, we're not asking permission for the political wonkish types of folks who want to dig into the legislation. I mean, some people are again looking at the Clarity Act and trying to interpret it, saying the Clarity Act basically makes it impossible for a province to exit the Federation, which is absolutely untrue. Fine. The Canada Pension Act, though, has a very distinct exit clause, and a province can give notice and can leave and can start their own pension plan. And Alberta is going to do that. The only thing we're going to quibble over right now is how much of that principal that's sitting in that asset pool Alberta is entitled to. And I do believe that the original report, I think it was LifeWorks, it was called, that was done by the Alberta government. I think they shot too high. They took a very generous interpretation and said Albertans were entitled to over half of the principal in it, and it enraged a lot of people. And I think it was almost a too good to be true moment. Fair enough, fine. But we were supposed to wait for the Ottawa to give us a report on it, then to tell us what Alberta would be entitled to. And they gave us a late report just before Christmas, full of bafflegab, and never gave us a number. So let's say we just took 12% of the principal. Let's just say we just took that based on population. That would give us a good $80 billion pool to start with. And if we just kept benefits the same and kept the payments going in the same, we would be sitting just as well off as we are today as people who are retired or people moving into retirement. Plus, we'd have a spare $5 billion a year to either add to the plan or reduce premiums or add to payouts to people. So there's a pretty good case to be made for getting out of the pension plan. And I don't think there's much sentiment on the part of Albertans anymore to say, yeah, we'll stay in it just for the sake of being nice to our masters out there in Ontario and Quebec, because they don't seem to appreciate it. So how much more should we bend over for them any longer? So, yeah, interesting times coming. We certainly, you know, again, if we don't have outright support for independence, we've got a regionalism that's going on, though, that we haven't seen in decades, and it's only going to get worse. I'll finish up before I get to my next guest, just with a question that's common, and I just want to hit it fast. Leaf Busby saying, can Canada just join the U.S.? Our policies kind of suck. No, we can't. It's not an option. We got to look at things province by province right now. The America 51 thing is an interesting distraction, but it's not something that's going to happen. Not to mention, I love a lot of things about the United States. I love Americans, and they have a lot of positive aspects. But guys, their system has a whole bunch of flaws as well. So we'd be just jumping from one frying pan into another fire. All right, let's kind of turn the page a little, though, and get on to my guest, John Carpe. He's with the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. He's done a lot of great work, and well, some more great work going on. Good to see you, John. It's been a couple days. Oh, I think you might be muted, John. Still not quite getting me, I'm
Glad to
afraid.
be with you, Cory. Sorry about that.
There we go. We got you. That's all right. It's live. Like I said earlier, you missed it, but I stepped on my own earpiece and pulled the plug out. So there, it shows it's real, guys. We aren't AI. AI wouldn't make mistakes like this. So thanks for joining me today, John. It's good to see you. I guess you got a lot of cases on the burner, but one is this one about you guys have an Alberta lawyer challenging the Law Society on their authority, I guess questionable authority to be woke. Can you kind of expand on that?
Yeah, so a very courageous Calgary lawyer by the name of Roger Song is suing the Law Society of Alberta over the, perversion of legal ethics and twisting them, politicizing the legal profession, where the ethical requirements include agreeing with equity, diversity, inclusion, and woke politics. And the biggest example of this is a mandatory course that Alberta lawyers must complete if they wish to earn a living by practicing law, and it's called The Path. I took The Path a few years ago. I spent, can't remember if it was like 5 hours or 8 hours. It was not excessively long, but still, 5 to 8 hours of your time to go through this course. It's very woke. You are kind of required to agree that colonization, which they never quite define, colonization is a very bad thing. Decolonization is a good thing, although neither term is clearly defined. And along with that, we've got this reconciliation that you're supposed to be in favor of. That's not quite defined. And so it's a very political course that has a particular aspect on Aboriginal issues, Aboriginal rights. And as a defender of free expression, I would defend to the death anybody's right to promote whatever view they want, on Aboriginal issues or just about anything else. It's a problem, though, when you have the Law Society as a government body that is requiring lawyers in Alberta to take this course and agree with the assertions in it as a condition of practicing law. If you don't complete The Path, if you don't take this course and express your agreement with the Law Society's politics, well, then you can't practice law. You can't earn a living. So this is an example of what the lawyer Roger Song is up against in his lawsuit against the Law Society of Alberta.
Yeah, well, and I mean, people, I think perhaps your average person just doesn't understand how dangerous this is. I mean, we really always, at some point or another, need legal representation. We need them to remain as true to the legal ethics that they hold as possible. And there's a reason for professional associations or a law society. But when they start politicizing, that can become very dangerous for some people who are relying on legal representation when your own lawyer feels like they might not be able to address issues properly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Law societies need to, especially law societies, even more so than other bodies or entities, need to respect the charter freedoms of expression, religion, conscience. Mr. Song's own personal history is that he was exposed to political indoctrination in communist China. He was previously a law professor in Beijing, so he has seen this movie before, where the law societies get politicized. Which, as a side thing, it's also in my book Corrupted by Fear. I talk about how the law societies in Germany in the 1930s became politicized, and they lost sight of the rule of law and protecting the rights and freedoms of German individuals, and instead they got into this ideology. And the Law Society actually admits to being political and ideological and having these objectives, but they say that they're entitled to do that. So this court case is going to be very interesting, because we're challenging the Law Society's claimed right to be political.
Yeah, and I see from your release, Mr. Song was saying the society is advancing policies under vague terms like, competence and ethics. Okay, those are things I guess that we need a degree of oversight on, but diversity is thrown in there. Well, I don't care about diversity. I as a person who needs to be served by legal representation now and then, I just want to be assured that my representation is the best I can potentially find. The diversity aspect is ridiculous.
Well, these are political things, right? Equity, diversity, inclusion. Those are political objectives, and I fully support the right of individuals and even private organizations as well. If you want to pursue that as a goal, okay, fine. If you're a private company and without government pressure, you put in racial quotas and you've got these policies, these woke policies to pursue equity, diversity, inclusion. If the private company is doing that, on its own initiative and not coerced into it by government, that's part of your freedom. And so every lawyer in Alberta is free to advance, to believe in equity, diversity, inclusion, whatever. But when it comes to serving clients, right, the Law Society should be monitoring only the competence of lawyers, not their politics, right? So there is a disciplinary process if a lawyer steals trust funds, or if a lawyer fails to show up in court for a client and gets the client in trouble. There's a code of ethics, and that's fine. But what's happening with the law societies across Canada is that the code of ethics is being converted into a political instrument where adhering to libertarian and conservative opinions and rejecting equity, diversity, inclusion is deemed to be unethical, and so you can get in trouble with your law society. I know of a case in British Columbia where a lawyer was not allowed to have his own counsel present at a disciplinary hearing because his own counsel had not been injected with COVID vaccine. So, this is a problem that we have to fight back against in the same way that we need to resist the colleges of physicians and surgeons when they repudiate science by aggressively threatening the livelihood of doctors who disagree with the government's narrative, right? And that is likewise is a very serious problem. We need the colleges of physicians and surgeons to uphold medical ethics. So, for example, a doctor is not allowed to have sex with a patient, fine, but not to step in there and on ideological grounds tell doctors how to practice medicine and interfere in the doctor-patient relationship. So all of these government bodies, law societies, colleges of physicians and surgeons, we need to hold them to account and resist their efforts to impose woke ideology on the population.
Yeah, and I mean these colleges and professional associations and they hold a lot of sway. I mean, they can have the thumbs up or thumbs down on your career. Another aspect we saw is with Dr. Jordan Peterson. If he wanted to practice as a psychologist, and again, he had to adhere to a political, basically, statement if he wanted to continue practicing, and he lost every appeal. I appear to have lost the sound. Okay. Can you hear him? Okay, I'm sorry, John. You appear to be muted again. We'll try again in a moment. You're still there. We go.
Yeah, the BC College of Nurses and Midwives disciplined Amy Ham. Amy Ham said publicly that there's only two genders and that a man can't become a woman can't become a man. Women deserve to have safe spaces like their, locker rooms, change rooms. Female prisons should not have guys coming there, etc. And she's found guilty of professional misconduct by the BC College of Nurses and Midwives. So we are taking that to court on behalf of Amy Ham. So that's a similar thing. You've got a professional body that is become politicized, and they're going to pursue woke progressive ideology and impose it on their members and punish their members for not adhering to it. And so we've got to fight back. We are fighting back very hard against groups like the BC College of Nurses and Midwives.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll kind of pull off on a bit of a sidetrack, but it ties into the legal profession and concerns onto the criminal end. For people not familiar with it, applying GLADU principles. It's from a case out in a domestic case out in Vancouver, but where it's assumed that Indigenous people have to be kind of treated differently, and different things have to be taken into account when considering sentencing, things like that. It's a very torqued area of law. And I mean, some people are questioning whether or not that's working out as it should, as Indigenous incarceration rates are just going ever higher despite it. But most lawyers would be terrified, I think, to challenge that, because that starts getting into the areas of the law society where you're supposed to just accept these bad aspects of colonialism and different treatment for Indigenous people than others. I mean, all of the public can be more poorly served justice-wise if we keep up this sort of thing.
Well, it also means that if the law societies are woke and want to impose their woke progressive ideology on every lawyer, it also creates less access to justice. I recall vividly about 6 years ago when Jonathan Jessica Yaniv, with the Twitter handle, quote, "wax my balls," quote, was the Twitter handle for this person, approached women asking for Brazilian bikini wax for his male privates, so to speak. One of our the Justice Center represented these women, and we succeeded in having the human rights complaints dismissed, and so that was good. But one of our clients said she went to 17 different law firms in Vancouver, or maybe throughout British Columbia, 17 different law firms to get legal representation because she'd been served with this human rights complaint by Yaniv, who wanted a Brazilian bikini wax from a woman. And 17 law firms refused to provide legal refused to take on her case, refused to represent her, because they said, "We are terrified of being publicly called transphobic, and so we're not going to risk our reputation, so we're not providing you with legal representation." So this is another thing. If you've got ideology infecting the law societies, then that is going to trickle out or trickle down to the law firms, and you get into a situation where it becomes harder to get legal representation if you don't have the correct political views. And that's not a good situation.
No, not at all. So, just kind of getting towards the end here with Mr. Song's case, that there was a hearing on May 6th. How long is this going to go on for?
Well, typically the courts will render their rulings in 2, 4, 6, 8 months. Sometimes it takes longer. I've been involved in cases where it has taken a year from the time of the hearing until the time of the judgment. But hopefully it's less than a year. But we will be getting a ruling, and we will be looking at it with interest. And would not be surprising that whichever side was unsuccessful on this round might want to appeal it to the Alberta Court of Appeal. So, I mean, this is probably going to go on for a while.
Yeah, well, and you guys have a lot of irons in the fires, and you've had some great victories in the last few years too, which is really, really appreciated. And actually, there's an award for freedom you guys offer as well. Wasn't there something coming up for that pretty soon?
Dr. Francis Widdowson is the 2025 recipient of the George Jonas Freedom Award. We've handed out this award each year to people like Mark Stein, Jordan Peterson, Tamara Leach, Ezra Levant, Christy Blatchford. So Francis Widdowson, of course, was fired from Mount Royal University for essentially political, ideological reasons, and we're representing her in a court case where we're suing the University of Lethbridge for practicing cancel culture against her. And the dinner in her honor in Calgary is Friday, September the 19th. And so more information on that is you can buy tickets on our website, www.jccf.ca, for the dinner Friday, September 19th.
Excellent. Yeah. And I was going to ask you about that, jccf.ca, because also you guys rely on contributions. I mean, you're providing a service for people, protecting their constitutional freedoms and rights, and it takes other people's support for you guys to be able to keep doing this. So I just want to remind everybody, they're looking out for us, guys, and that's where people can get on there and support you guys and help out, whether it's a contribution or attending things like that dinner, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're grateful we got support from people all across Canada, and that enables us to have our team of lawyers from BC to Quebec. We've got lawyers, paralegals, communication staff, and that's 100% funded by voluntary donations from Canadians.
Well, it's really appreciated, the work you guys do, and you're coming on today to talk to us about it. So thank you very much, John. And I look forward to hopefully seeing more positive rulings as you guys just don't let go on these issues and make sure that you're standing up for us.
We'll keep on working hard. Have a great rest of the day, Cory.
Right. Thanks, John. All right. So yes, guys, remember that jccf.ca. That was John Carpe, and they have had, as I said, a great many successes and rulings in favor of freedoms, and they celebrate freedoms. It's important. If we don't stand up for ourselves, nobody else will. It is so integral. And yeah, I got a personal interest in it since. With something earlier, I've got a court challenge going on with the Siksika Nation in Alberta over a video I'd taken on the reserve from a public highway, and they've charged me with trespassing. And actually, a branch of the JCCF is helping me out on that one as well, and we're challenging that. But it's not as dire as some of these other cases. We've got lawyers potentially losing licenses, and people are just some of the absurdity. You know, I'm glad he brought up that Jessica Yaniv case. I mean, it just shows how the woke can suspend reality to the point of causing harm, real harm. So for those not familiar with it, because this is a case just worth, I think, bringing up again and again, because I think she's surfaced again. She's calling herself Indigenous, this crazy person. I keep saying she. I try to be polite. You know, with real trans people, if they identify as she, okay, that's fine, and live how you will, and I hope you're happy, and I'll respect that typically. But this Jessica Yaniv, her name's Jonathan. She's just a nutcase. Or even a con artist, I would say. I mean, what was happening was, yes, she was going to estheticians, typically run by New Canadians in Vancouver and such, and demanding to have her nuts waxed. And these places, of course, they specialize in that sort of, you know, cosmetology for women. That's the plumbing they work with. That's the parts. And Yaniv knew they were going to refuse. And then she would just take them to the Human Rights Commission. She did dozens of them, or at least a dozen. There was a whole pile of them. She was going, and now there was a few things. For one, some of them were getting shaken down because they're immigrants and they're scared of the system. They don't want to get caught up in it. Others, as John pointed out, though, having trouble finding a lawyer to represent themselves because they're scared. Lawyers just didn't even want to go into a trans issue because you could end up canceled and with all that trouble. It's insane. Think of what Jonathan was demanding. She was demanding the law force an unwilling woman to touch a man's testicles. When you break it all down to what this case actually was, that's what it was. It was saying we should have the force of law to force the women working in that place to touch his nuts. And it had to go through the courts. This was so insane and so stupid and so ridiculous that it should never even have been considered, yet it actually went through the legal system. It's nuts. Nuts. I didn't even mean to be a bad pun there, but you know what I mean? We've had cases with women's shelters because they're often run by woke idiots who let men into the women's shelter. Because, well, we have to respect he's identifying as a woman. Yeah, but he's got a cock and balls. And this shelter is full of women who have been abused by men sexually, physically. It's the reason it's called a shelter. They're there to be kept away from that, to heal, to reestablish themselves, to feel safe for a little while. And you got shared spaces and some blue-haired, bloated idiot saying, we've got to let this man in here because this man's identifying as a woman, and now put all these women at risk, put them more into fear, challenge their feeling of safety as they're trying to recover from being abused by a man already. But we're afraid to say no because that would be being insensitive to the trans community. Are we not allowed to have a little common sense yet, guys? Apparently not. Apparently not. You know, I've talked about that. I talked about that when it comes to the sports, when it comes to the prisons, when it comes to the shelters. I think at least to a degree we can accommodate, but that's if the person's fully committed, and that's very easy to identify or not. Have you still got the plumbing, or have you had it chopped off? If the junk's gone, okay, You are definitely committed to being a trans person. And yes, you should perhaps, you would be safe in a woman's prison or a, woman's shelter or in women's sports, even perhaps. But if you've still got all that stuff hanging down there, then you're just a guy in a skirt. And you were presenting potentially just as much danger to somebody in some of those exclusively women spaces, and you should not be there. Why is it controversial to say something like that? Why does it put somebody at risk of being canceled just to say the obvious? It's a topsy-turvy, insane world we are in. And it's interesting what John was talking about that. As we said, you have to go through these courses. And the same with Jordan Peterson. It's indoctrination. You're forced to say these statements and these politicized, bizarre, cultish things. Where did we hear that before? That was from the re-education camps of communist Chinese, Khmer Rouge, those sorts of things. That's indoctrination. Extremely dangerous. Speaking of which, this is getting back to how dangerous Canada is, how bad it is. Again, Joseph Tay, the conservative candidate in the last election, has had two relatives being questioned by communists in Hong Kong because he spoke out. This is Canadian citizens getting pressured by the Chinese Communist Party, and we've got a Liberal government that is beholden to the Chinese Communist Party. We are in a whole lot of trouble, and it's frightening. And when we can't say common sense things, a spade's a spade, and a man's a man, a woman's a woman, we just have to get realistic. And I don't know where else to go. We got interesting times going on, if nothing else. Guilbeault was mentioned earlier. I mean, I just want to reiterate on how the Liberals are no different. Nothing has changed. We're back to the same thing. Guilbeault, who is now in charge of culture, whatever. A ministry of culture, there's one of those things too. Let culture organically develop how it will. It's not the role of the government to protect, preserve, or practice culture. Culture is a living thing. It changes. That's part of the great melting pot we have. We take on aspects. Some cultures change. They aren't the same as they were 100 years ago. They aren't the same in this part of the country as they are in that part of the country. We don't need a central government to define it or tell us how to practice it. But that's his job. He's making six figures, and he's a lunatic. But then even then, he's no longer the environment minister, but he still got to the microphone and beeped up and said, we're not going to get any more pipelines in Canada. Why is the culture minister telling us this? Why are you even dipping into that, Guilbeault? Shouldn't your boss, the prime minister, said, hey, Guilbeault, shut the hell up. You're not the environment minister. You're not the energy minister. You're just an extremist who's popular in a Quebec riding, and we stuck you in a token position. Stay out of the energy sector. Why didn't the prime minister tell him to shut up? Because the prime minister agrees with him. We aren't getting pipes. That's the other aspect that, even Coyne and the others aren't talking about, but it's the truth of it. That as much as Carney promised all these economic corridors and all of these things and recognized that Canada's economy is getting blown to hell, our productivity is crap, our GDP per capita is falling into the toilet, a lot of which is because we've idiotically shut in our natural resources because we had a prime minister ding-dong for 10 years stuck on environmental extremism. Well, now we got Carney, who's just as environmentally nutty as Trudeau was. He's just a little bit brighter. And he's going to shut it in. He said outright, this is funny when we see people talking about, the province can't leave because the Clarity Act says they can't. Actually, Clarity Act says we can. And then they say, but we're going to be selective with the Constitution. The Constitution says that these sorts of infrastructure, the province shouldn't be able to hold it up. He's talking about free trade across the provinces. Well, part of that free trade is getting a pipeline across Quebec. But Carney came out and said, well, unless we get consent from Quebec, we're not going to do it. Well, then, in other words, we don't actually care about the Constitution. We don't actually have a federation. And that's what I come back to with Alberta, and that's part of why we're seeing independent sentiment exploding, because people are realizing Canada's not giving me anything here. I mean, that's what politics always eventually come down to, the bottom line and the end of everything. What's in it for me? That's what people vote for. What's in it for me? What's in it for Albertans right now? Let's see, having our resources shut in, being underrepresented in the Senate, being called assholes for standing up for ourselves, being drained through equalization payments, bad justice system. What the hell's in it for us? What is the Federation offering us? To be honest, squat. Either way, that's enough of my crabbiness for now, guys. There's a long weekend coming up. It's the May long weekend, Victoria Day for others. Get out, enjoy it, take a breather. We got lots more to work on throughout the rest of the course of the spring and the summer. So be sure to tune into the Western Standard shows. There's all sorts coming out from Sean, from Derek, from Nigel. And, tune in, share the links, do all that. We can bypass the old legacy media. We can cut through that. So thank you all for tuning in on this Friday, guys. And I will see you again on Wednesday for my regular show. So have a good weekend. Catch you then.